They say closure comes with time, but what happens when closure arrives in the form of a letter so raw, so unfiltered, it breaks the internet? That's exactly what happened last night when an alleged handwritten letter reportedly penned by none other than Kendra was leaked to the public, and it's got everyone talking. The emotional bombshell was posted anonymously on a private fan forum, but within minutes, screenshots spread like wildfire across Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Fans are shocked, celebrities are commenting, and even young Jock himself, usually calm and collected, has reportedly gone silent after reading what's inside, according to sources close to the couple. This letter isn't just a breakup note, it's a full-on emotional confession, drenched in heartbreak, betrayal, and years of unresolved pain. And if the handwriting is real and every fan with a Kendra autograph swears it is, then this might be the final chapter in one of reality TV's most unpredictable love sagas. But here's the twist no one saw coming. Kendra didn't just say goodbye, she exposed secrets, revealed new betrayals, and delivered a message so haunting, so painfully honest. It's left the love and hip-hop community absolutely speechless. What exactly did Jock do that pushed her to write this? And why now? Buckle up, because what you're about to hear will flip the script on everything you thought you knew about young Jock and Kendria's relationship. This isn't just drama. This is emotional warfare. And it starts with a letter that's tearing hearts apart one sentence at a time. It started with a whisper, a soft, almost apologetic murmur in the back rooms of Atlanta's reality TV gossip circles. Word spread fast, and by the time the sun rose, Kendra's name was trending again. Not because of a new business venture or red carpet moment, but because of a leak. Not just any leak, but a letter. A real, tangible, aching confession. From the woman who once stood proudly next to young Jock through thick and thin, through lies and loyalty, through clout and collapse. And now, the silence she'd kept for years was shattered with ink. The internet didn't know what to believe. Fans were tearing each other apart in comment sections, some defending Jock, others cradling Kendra's pain like it was their own. The letter wasn't just a farewell, it was a slow emotion explosion, and part one of the blast. It rewrote history. In the letter, Kendra begins not with bitterness, but with grace, a move no one expected. "Jock," she wrote, "I don't even know where to begin, but I'll try. I'm writing this because talking never worked. You always had a way of spinning words into riddles, making me question if I was crazy or just too emotional." Just like that, fans were hooked, not yelling, not accusations, but the kind of raw, aired pain that could only come from someone who once truly loved deeply and was equally deeply hurt. The tone was weary, like a woman who had held in a scream for years and had finally decided to let it breathe on paper. She recounted the early days, how they met at a charity event when Jock was on his high horse, draped in diamonds and that signature cocky grin. "You made me laugh when I was tired of pretending I was okay," she wrote. "I thought you saw me, the real me, but I realize now you were just mirroring what you thought I needed." Fans couldn't handle it. Old clips of the two together resurfaced online. Moments that once looked like couple goals now looked like red flags in high definition. The romantic dinners, the flirty banter, even the engagement rumors, all reinterpreted under the new lens of Kendra's pain. Then came the first real blow in the letter. The betrayal. Not the kind that makes headlines, but the kind that festers in quiet moments. "You always had someone else," she wrote, "maybe not physically at first but emotionally. I was sharing your loyalty with the ghost of your past and the fantasy of your next." Those words echoed across timelines. Fans immediately jumped into detective mode, analyzing Jock's history with Carly Red, Cena, and even his ex-wife, hoping to crack the timeline. But Kendra wasn't naming names. She wasn't here to gossip, she was here to bleed. The letter continued, detailing how she would stay up waiting for calls that never came. How his phone would always be face down, on silent, or worse off. "You said you were grinding, that you were in the studio, but the studio never smelled like perfume, Jock." That line in particular went viral. Memes were made, but underneath the jokes was a collective hurt. Every woman who had ever questioned their worth in a one-sided relationship saw themselves in Kendra. She wasn't just writing to Jock, she was writing to them. And yet, she never villainized him completely. That's what made it hurt more. "You weren't always cold," she admitted. "Sometimes, you were the only warmth I knew. You would rub my feet when I was too exhausted to move, and whisper dreams into my ear like you really believed in us." That complexity, the acknowledgement of both the beauty and the destruction, is what made the letter so haunting. This wasn't a simple story of a cheater and a victim. It was the unraveling of a bond, too tangled to make sense of in just black and white. Fans began posting their own stories under the hashtag #KHADIYAHS letter. Some crying on camera, others reading parts of the leaked note aloud with trembling voices. "She put into words what I couldn't even admit to myself," one fan said in a viral TikTok. Even celebrities chimed in. Erica Mena commented a broken heart emoji. Tammy Rivera wrote, "Some letters are prayers in disguise." But Jock? He said nothing. No Instagram live. No tweet. No carefully crafted PR post. Just silence. The kind of silence that says guilty louder than words ever could. As Kendra moved deeper into the letter, she began exposing the emotional toll. She spoke about the time she threw away her vision board because none of the dreams made sense if I had to carry them alone. She described faking smiles at red carpet events, pretending to be proud of a man she no longer recognized, and, worst of all, abandoning her own reflection in the process. "I used to love my laugh, Jock. You took that from me. You made me second-guess my joy, like it was too loud, too much, too inconvenient for your ego." And then came the letters. Most unexpected twist. She mentioned a moment when she almost left but stayed because of a secret. "I had a test in my purse the day you told me I was too emotional to be loved properly. I didn't say anything. I just smiled and told you I was fine." That single sentence flipped everything upside down. Did she mean a pregnancy test? Did she lose a child? Did Jock know? Fans demanded answers. Threads exploded online with wild theories and painful confessions from women who had lived through similar experiences. No confirmation has surfaced, but insiders close to Kendra hinted that yes, she had been pregnant once but never told Jock after an early miscarriage. That one line from the letter broke hearts across the country. And that's exactly where Part 1 ends. On a sentence that lingers in the air like smoke. Because the moment Kendra revealed that hidden part of her pain, the stakes changed. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was about erasure of a woman who buried her grief so deep it took years to dig it up and send it in a letter. But as emotional as it had already become, no one was prepared for what she wrote next. Because the letter was far from over. And what came in Part 2 would send shockwaves not just through Jock's life, but through his entire circle. Because what followed in the next portion of Kendra's heart-wrenching letter wasn't just personal, it was devastating. She transitioned from hidden heartbreak into brutal clarity, exposing cracks not only in her relationship with young Jock but also in the entire foundation of trust, respect, and dignity she had once wrapped around him like a crown. "Do you know how many times I begged myself to unlove you?" she wrote. "How many times I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back because all she did was wait for your scraps." The words weren't just sad, they were surgical, cutting through the myth of Jock's charm that fans had clung to for years. In the letter, Kendra recounted in vivid detail a night that changed everything for her, a night that had never aired on television, never made the blogs, never even left her mouth. Until now. "Remember the rooftop party you swore was just a few industry folks?" she asked. "I watched you kiss her. I wasn't invited, but I came anyway. I stood behind a pillar with tears pouring down my face like the city lights were weeping with me." The internet exploded. Fans began speculating who her was. Names like Carly, Red, Tommy, and even newcomers to Jock's recent circle were tossed around like grenades. But Kendra didn't name her. She didn't need to. The betrayal was bigger than a name. It was a pattern, a cycle Jock had perfected behind closed doors. She went on to describe how that night solidified her emotional exit, even though her body stayed a little longer. "My legs were still beside you, but my soul had already packed up and moved out," she wrote. That line sent chills through social media. Women, especially, resonated with the feeling of being physically present in a relationship but emotionally abandoned. It wasn't just Jock's fans who were shaken. His family, friends, and former co-stars were stunned. According to sources close to the situation, several members of his inner circle were blindsided by the letter's contents, having had no idea just how deep Kendra's pain ran. What's more, Kendra didn't hold back from addressing them, either. "To your boys who laughed when I cried," she wrote. "To the women who smiled in my face while sleeping in my shadow, I see you, and I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to carry you with me anymore." The level of maturity, mixed with righteous fury, had fans calling it the classiest dragging in reality TV history. She wasn't ranting, she was freeing herself, one sentence at a time. And then, she turned inward. She started unpacking her own mistakes, not to excuse Jock, but to hold herself accountable for staying too long, loving too hard, and losing too much. I saw the red flags and painted them white, she admitted. I played house with a man who was still building homes in other women's hearts. Fans were stunned. They'd always known Kendra as a strong, assertive woman, but the vulnerability in these words hit differently. This wasn't the Kendra who clapped back in confessionals or stood her ground in reunion specials. This was the real Kendra, the woman behind the glam, the titles, the TV lights. Her words began shifting from pain to liberation. She spoke of nights spent crying on cold bathroom floors, holding her chest like she was trying to keep her heart from falling out. She confessed to deleting Jock's number 100 times, only to memorize it like a prayer. "You were my addiction, Jock, and I was your convenience. But I'm clean now." Fans quoted that line over and over again, calling it one of the most powerful breakup statements ever written. And if fans thought that was the emotional peak, Kendra wasn't done. She dropped one more bomb. She mentioned a confrontation that had never been seen on camera. "Do you remember the night I found the texts? You laughed, said I was overreacting. Then you walked out and didn't come home until 5 a.m. I didn't say a word. I just curled up on the couch, hugging your hoodie like it could lie to me better than you could." That moment ripped through social media like wildfire. The visual was too real, too raw. Fans recreated it in skits, TikToks, and even spoken word poems. But it wasn't just content, it was catharsis. Behind the scenes, insiders claimed that Jock was in complete damage control mode. His team allegedly reached out to multiple gossip blogs, urging them to let things cool off and wait for the full story. But the damage was done. For many fans, no PR statement could unwrite what Kendra had written. Especially when she pivoted to the emotional aftermath. "You taught me how to dim my light," she wrote. "But now I'm learning how to turn it back on." She spoke about rebuilding herself, how she started journaling, how therapy became her lifeline, and how, slowly, she started to feel again. "There was a day I laughed and didn't feel guilty. A day I danced alone in my apartment, not for Instagram, not for you, just for me." Fans were in tears. They weren't just watching drama unfold, they were watching a woman rise. Toward the end of part 2, Kendra hinted that she'd been approached to come back to TV, not as Jock's storyline, but with her own. "They want me to talk," she wrote. "To tell the truth, I said yes, because this time, I'm telling it on my terms." The industry buzzed. Producers saw dollar signs. Fans saw vindication. And Jock, well, he saw the beginning of a storm. He couldn't silence. But before she closed this part of her letter, Kendra delivered one more message, not to Jock, not to the fans, but to herself. "If you're reading this, baby girl," she wrote to the version of herself who once begged for crumbs of affection, "you made it, you got out, you're healing, and this pain, it's not your prison anymore." As part 2 came to an end, the letter felt less like a goodbye to Jock and more like a hello to the woman Kendra had buried under years of pain. But don't be mistaken, the drama wasn't over. Because as the ink dried on her self-love, she was about to expose something even deeper. The moment she realized she was never just one of Jock's women, she had been the one holding all the broken pieces of him together, while breaking herself in the process. Part 3 would dig into that revelation and tear the entire narrative apart. And so, part 3 of Kendra's emotional letter didn't come quietly, it roared. After pages of heartbreak and personal reckoning, she turned the focus toward the emotional manipulation that had left scars far deeper than anyone could have imagined. The tone shifted from grief to clarity, like someone finally emerging from fog and realizing the forest they'd been lost in was on fire the whole time. "You didn't break me in one night, Jock," she wrote. "You broke me piece by piece. With smiles, with silence, with gaslight kisses that told me I was crazy for feeling what you knew damn well you were doing." The internet stopped breathing. Gaslight kisses, a phrase that trended within the hour. Fans posted screenshots of their own experiences, repeating Kendra's exact words as if she had reached into their private pain and put a name to it. She continued to unpack the way Jock would twist her emotions. "You had this way of making me apologize after I caught you lying," she wrote. "I'd walk in on your betrayal, and somehow, by the end of the conversation, I'd be the one saying sorry for ruining the mood." The line stung deep. But Kendra wasn't just writing for pity, she was writing for power. She wanted the world to understand the psychological warfare that doesn't always make headlines or TV edits. The kind that doesn't leave bruises on skin, but does on souls. Then, almost as if anticipating fans' disbelief, she dropped proof. I still have the texts, she revealed. The ones you said were fake. The screenshots you deleted from my phone when I was asleep. You thought I wouldn't notice. You always underestimated how quietly I paid attention. And with that, blogs and fans exploded again. Who were the women in those texts? Did Jock delete evidence while pretending to be asleep beside her? The whispers turned into investigative threads, with some users claiming they'd identified at least 2 mystery women based on her timeline clues. And just when the frenzy reached its peak, Kendra doubled down not on the betrayal, but on how she took it. I stayed, she admitted. Not because I didn't know better, but because I wanted to believe the boy I loved still lived somewhere inside the man you became. That line cracked hearts wide open. It wasn't just about cheating anymore. It was about hope that cost her her peace. She described late nights replaying old voicemails just to hear the version of Jock that used to love her, used to dream with her, used to show up, but that version had become a ghost. You became a shadow of yourself, she wrote, and I became your mirror, trying to reflect the parts you refused to see. Then came a detail that caught everyone off guard. Do you remember when your mama called me her daughter? She wrote. She held my hands and said, "You're the calm he doesn't know he needs." I cried in the bathroom after she left, not because I was flattered, but because I knew even she saw the storm. I was trying to survive. Now Jock's own family was part of the narrative, and fans were in shock. People started dragging up old footage from reunion shows and behind-the-scenes clips, trying to analyze every interaction between Kendra and Jock's mother, suddenly reinterpreting looks and comments as subtle cries for help. The letter continued to evolve. Now it wasn't just a personal goodbye, was a public awakening. She addressed the fans directly. To the girls who envied our Instagram life, she wrote, "Please understand, filters hide more than skin." It was a confession, and a warning all at once. She dismantled the illusion of perfection with surgical precision. The couple's so-called couple goals image was shattered, replaced by the truth of emotional abandonment dressed up as luxury love. And then came the most explosive confession yet, one that changed everything. "You asked me once why I never married you," she wrote. "I lied. I said I wasn't ready. But the truth is I knew you'd break your vows before the ink dried." That line hit like a thunderclap. Fans had long speculated why Kendra and Jock never took that final step. Now they knew it wasn't fear, it was foresight. She saw the cracks in the foundation and chose self-preservation over spectacle. But even as she peeled away the fantasy, she refused to strip away her dignity. She described walking away quietly, not making a scene, not exposing him when she could have. "I let you keep your image. I didn't blast you when you deserved it. I let people believe I was just too intense or too controlling. And you just let that narrative live." This moment, this admission sent chills. Kendra had carried not only her heartbreak but Jock's reputation on her shoulders for years. And now, she was setting it down. Still, amidst all the pain, there was something else blue in forgiveness. Not for Jock, but for herself. "I forgive the me who stayed. I forgive the me who kept hoping. I forgive the me who thought love meant shrinking into silence." It was as if she was writing her way out of a prison. Every sentence felt like a key. Every memory, a lock. And as she kept turning them, she began to rediscover her freedom. She described the healing as slow, but real. "It started with small things," she wrote, "like buying flowers for myself, laughing at sitcoms again, relearning what it felt like to enjoy my own company without waiting for your approval." These small acts became milestones in a journey that most people don't get to witness on reality TV. She painted a picture of rising, not from rage, but from release. And yet, right as fans felt like they were getting closure with her, she gave them one final emotional twist. "I thought I was writing this letter to say goodbye," she wrote. "But as I pour out these truths, I realize I'm not writing to you anymore, Jock. I'm writing to the woman I used to be, and I hope she forgives me for leaving her behind for so long." That was the moment everything shifted again. It wasn't just Jock who was exposed. It was the entire culture of silence, of pretending, of performing strength while dying inside. Kendra had cracked the facade, not just for herself, but for thousands watching, waiting, and healing with her. Fans flooded her DMs with thank yous, reposted the letter with captions like, "She wrote what I never could." And celebrities began circling her for podcast appearances, book deals, and even brand endorsements about healing and emotional survival. But still, the letter wasn't finished, because the part that came next would reveal something even Jock himself didn't see coming, a secret she'd kept, not out of fear, but out of strategy. Something that would flip the narrative on its head and make the entire internet question, who really had the power all along? And that is exactly where part 3 ends, on the edge of a revelation so unexpected, so dramatic, it would make Jock rethink every smug step he'd ever taken. Part 4 would break the internet, because just when fans thought they had heard it all, just when Kadia's letter had peeled back every layer of heartbreak, humiliation, and hard-earned healing, she'd dropped the final bombshell that no one, not even young Jock himself, could have anticipated. With her pain spilled across the pages, her dignity reclaimed, and her silence broken, she delivered the line that would change the game forever. You thought I stayed because I was weak. But the truth is, I stayed because I wasn't done watching you dig your own grave, baby. You did it beautifully. The internet erupted. It wasn't just a mic drop, it was a meteor strike. The power dynamic flipped in an instant. Everything fans thought they knew about their breakup, about Kadia's heartbreak, about Jock's dominance in their narrative, collapsed under the weight of one sentence. Because what she revealed next wasn't just personal, it was strategic. She had never been a victim. She had been observing, quietly, meticulously, waiting for the right moment. And now, that moment had arrived. You kept receipts on me, she wrote, but I was archiving you the whole time. Boom. Gasps rippled across Twitter. DMs were flooded. Private groups buzzed with speculation. Fans began to wonder, what kind of receipts? What had she been holding back all this time? The letter didn't include screenshots, but it didn't need to. The mere implication that Kadia had proof that could expose Jock it in ways he couldn't spin sent a chill through his entire fanbase and lit a fire under the blogs. She detailed the careful collection of evidence over the years, from women Jock denied ever speaking to, audio clips of him making promises to multiple partners, bank transactions tied to hotel rendezvous. You once told me I was too emotional to be calculating. That was your biggest mistake, she wrote. You assumed I was in love with you, but I was documenting us. The internet went nuclear. Suddenly, Kadia wasn't just a heartbroken ex, she was a strategist, a quiet force who had spent years building her own truth, brick by brick, waiting for the moment Jock thought he'd won to reveal he'd been playing checkers on her chessboard. And she wasn't done. She shifted to the emotional toll this double life had cost her, but instead of pity, she wielded it as a weapon. While you were out playing king, she said, I was busy rebuilding the queen you tried to bury. Her words weren't fragile. They were forged. Forged from betrayal, isolation, manipulation, and yet, somehow, she stood taller than ever in them. And then she addressed Jock's image. You built a brand on being charming, playful, the funny one, but behind that grin is a man who can't stand to look in the mirror unless someone else is hurting worse than he is. That line, devastating. Fans rewatched clips of Jock laughing on camera, moments that once looked charismatic now, viewed as coping mechanisms or worse, masks for emotional cruelty. He had gone from lovable to questionable overnight. And the timing, devastating. Rumors swirled that Jock was working on a memoir, pitching a podcast about relationships, both of which may now be permanently derailed. Still, Kadia didn't write for revenge. She wrote for release. You don't owe me an apology, she wrote. You owe yourself a reckoning. It was a sentence that didn't demand closure but declared it. She had already moved on emotionally. What the letter had done, what it was still doing, was letting the world move on with her. They used to tell me to stop talking about you, she admitted, as if healing had a deadline. But now I understand my silence protected you. This letter, it protects me. Fans were floored. The letter had started as a breakup note, evolved into a testimony, and now stood as a declaration of liberation. But Kadia wasn't done dropping truths. She spoke about how Jock tried to return unsmoans after their quiet split. You knocked on my door with a bag of takeout and a tired smile, she wrote. You said, let's try again. I looked at you, really looked at you, and realized I didn't miss you. I missed the girl who believed you'd change. The silence after that paragraph online was louder than any scream. But even now, after years of deception, disrespect, and dismissals, Kadia ended the letter, not with venom, but with vision. I hope you grow, she said. I hope one day, when the applause fades and the cameras turn off, you find a man inside yourself who doesn't need to tear down women to feel tall. The maturity, the poise, the finality of that line left readers breathless. Jock had been served not just a breakup, but a blueprint for becoming better. Whether he'd follow it or not, well, that's the cliffhanger. Fans and celebrities alike flooded Khadija with support. Messages of solidarity, offers to collaborate, and even rumored publishing deals filled her inbox. According to one insider, she's considering turning the letter into a short book, Letters to the Me I Forgot. Oprah's team has allegedly reached out for a potential sit-down. And as for Jock, he's still silent. One close source says he's processing, another says he's furious but cornered. But the truth is, there's nothing left to spin. Khadija had the last word, and she used it with elegance, purpose, and unmatched power. She didn't just leak a letter, she ignited a movement, and with that, the letter ended. But the healing, the impact, the message, that's just beginning. And just like that, what started as a private goodbye turned into a public awakening. Khadija's letter wasn't just a message to young Jock, it was a moment. A cultural shift. A reckoning. She didn't scream, she didn't shame. She told her truth with the kind of grace that slices deeper than rage ever could. From emotional abuse to silent betrayals, from false starts to quiet endings, Khadija walked us through her pain, not to gain sympathy but to reclaim her story. And now, she's not just a former cast member, she's a symbol, a survivor, a voice for every woman who's ever been gaslit, silenced, or told she was too much while giving too much. Fans are still reeling. Jock has yet to respond, and the industry watching closely. What comes next is anyone's guess. Will Jock break his silence? Will this spark more women to speak out? Will Khadija finally get the platform she always deserved, not as someone's love interest, but as the lead in her own narrative? One thing's for sure. This letter didn't just expose a man, it revealed a movement. A quiet storm that had been building for years and has now, finally, been set free. But now we want to hear from you. What did you think about Khadija's final letter? Do you believe she's telling the full truth? Or is there more to the story? And do you think young Jock should respond or stay silent and let the dust settle? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, don't hold back. Like this video if you felt even a single word of Khadija's pain. Subscribe for more explosive updates, insider drama, and the real stories behind reality TV's most famous faces. And remember, sometimes, the loudest goodbye is written in silence. And sealed in ink.